Here we come, blue and white, and we're looking good. You'll be in for a fight, and we fight pretty good. Getting goals is our job, and we get goals good. Looking good, we are Carlisle United.
Hello everyone, you're listening to the Brunton Bugle, the number one place to get your Carlisle United fix in the podcast world. I'm Lee Rooney.
And I'm Dan McLennan.
Late drama in Wiltshire, United grab a 96th-minute winner against the Robins. We look back on the thrilling finale and the 2-1 win at Swindon, while looking ahead to this weekend's huge clash against second-place Stevenage and the midweek trip to Yorkshire to take on Bradford. So we're recording this week's episode a little bit earlier than usual, aren't we, Dan? We normally record these Thursday afternoon, Thursday evening, depending on availability, but because of the GGs this week, you've asked us to record a little bit earlier, haven't you? So
yes.
So we've done that, and as pure luck would have it, we've got a bit of breaking news that we're going to cover in the news section, aren't we? Which is quite exciting. We won't say what it is yet. I mean, you're going to know what it is by the time you listen to it if you've got any sense and you follow all the Carlisle United channels. But some very interesting breaking news has emerged this morning on the Thursday morning. But yeah, how are you doing, Danny? You all good? I mean, you must be pretty good after that game at the weekend and the result.
Yeah, definitely. As I was saying to you before we started recording, that result is a result of a team that's going somewhere.
Yeah.
I think in previous seasons we'd have sought out the draw, 1-1, happy point on the road. But when you're winning 2-1, 96-minute unmarked striking at the back post, returning from injury, something's happening, isn't it?
It's one of those moments, isn't it? And we'll talk about it in the match review section. But when you look back on the season, that's one of those moments where you look back and think, that's the moment we knew, yeah, this is going to be our year. This is it, you know. I mean,
I've said it for months.
Yeah, when you look back a couple of years ago on the beach and where it all went to pot, basically.
Yeah.
There was no real moment in that season, maybe, where you thought that possibly. Maybe that Walsall game on New Year's Day, but that was probably a little bit too early to be starting to think that. But we never had that eureka moment in that season, did we? Whereas this season, it kind of feels like we're getting a couple of those at the moment, and it's kind of like, yeah, this really is a big opportunity for us, isn't it? But there you go. Right, before we get started with the news section, because there's a couple of bits to cover in that, we'll tell you who's been sponsoring the podcast this season, which you should all know by now if you listen regularly, where to subscribe to the podcast and how you can get in contact with us. We'd like to say a big thank you to the Carlisle United Supporters Club London branch for once again sponsoring the podcast this season. The London branch is open to all Carlisle United fans. They've got members from Cornwall to Dundee and Houston to Singapore and of course every part of London and the South East. They regularly meet up on away trips as well as arranging many social events, supporters games and fundraising for the club. This season they'll be providing us with information for the away games as part of the preview section. You can find out more about the London branch at their website, carlisle.londonbranch.org. If you haven't already, please make sure you subscribe to the podcast. You can find us on all good podcast apps, whether it's Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Pocket Casts. Basically, search for the Brunton Bugle, click subscribe, and then when a new episode comes out, you'll get a little notification to tell you to download it and listen to it at your leisure. Also, if there's an option to review on any of those apps, please do so. If you can give us a 5-star review, that'd be really lovely. It's a great way for us to get the message out about the podcast, and so more people can learn about it, and we can spread the word even more. You can also find us on social media, at Brunton Bugle, on Instagram and Twitter. If you go onto Facebook and search for the Brunton Bugle and click like as well, you can follow our page. We're also on the Be Just and Fear Not Facebook group and also on the Buzz Is Back message board, the new message board that's replaced the cumbrians.net. And also, if you want to drop us an email, bruntonbugle@gmail.com. Right, Dan, let's get into the news section. Do you want to start with the big bit of breaking news first, or should we go with what we've got so far?
We may as well. You've hyped it up.
Go on, let's go over it. Well, the club tweeted this morning a little. Is it the old the clock logo? Isn't it? I think they did. Let me get the tweet up. So it was a blue heart, a blue circle, and a pen with a good news, and Ron Swanson doing the old thing with his, how do you describe it? Basically, is it shake pineapple or something? The move from like Agadoo. I don't know how to describe it. Anyway, it's Ron Swanson from Parks and Rec getting very excited. It says good news, and what's this news going to be? And the news is it's a new contract signing, isn't it, Dan?
It is. Jack Harbour. And
not just a contract, a 3-year contract, which is going to keep him at the club until the summer of 2026.
Hang on. The days of more than 1 year deals had finished at this club, aren't they?
Oh, you know what? Getting rid of that clown's one of the best things we've ever done, because The idea that you could survive at this level on 1-year deals and actually progress and go forward as a club is absolute madness. So one of the best decisions that was ever taken at this club, not just alongside getting Simo, and was getting rid of him. We don't mention his name. I accidentally mentioned him on the other pod that I was on the other week, didn't I? I tried my hardest not to say his name and then dropped it in by accident. But yeah, Jack Armour, 3-year deal confirmed this morning, and Simo, from his comments, sounds absolutely delighted about it, doesn't he?
Certainly does, and also a suggestion of possibly another today.
Yeah,
which
typically that'll be after
be announced, and you'll know by the time you listen, and possibly more in the future.
Yeah, really interesting comments. And one of the things Simo said basically is that when we sat down originally and discussed with him, they were talking about a 2-year deal. But then Simo was like, well, actually, that means in 2 years' time he could leave on a Bosman. Let's get him tied down long term. And then, if someone comes in for him, which someone could do in the future, because he's been terrific. You look at this season, he's missed, 4 minutes of league action, I think it is, in total, which is seriously impressive. When you look at that, you think to yourself, well, what's to say, he won't go for big money in a couple of years' time when he's got good 200 appearances under his belt for the club.
I've kind of alluded to this already in the past, haven't I? I think I've already said I think in time he moves more inside, and I think he'll make money for us because he's doing it properly. He's came out, took the gamble, been rewarded with games.
He's improved as a player as well. That's the thing. From the player we brought in, and he looked tidy when we first got him. Remember when he played those games at right wing back, didn't he? And he was cutting on his left, and you thought, wow, there's a player with a bit of ability, but his strength, he's not blindingly fast, but he's got a little bit of pace about him. He gets up and down. His fitness levels are superb, and his quality on the ball as well is improving. I think the one thing he needs to add to his game is goals. More on that shortly, obviously. But yeah, fantastic to tie him down to 3 years, isn't it, really? Simo in his comments also basically mentioned the fact that essentially he wanted... Because he said a while back, didn't he, that we won't be discussing contracts before the end of the season. And I knew he was fibbing when he said that. I thought, there's no way they've not at least done some initial discussions with agents. And obviously it's come out with this now. What Simo's actually said is he doesn't want to get involved in that early on. So Greg is the one who's handling it. He doesn't want a big group of players coming to him to talk about contracts. So Greg's handling it. Some players have basically said they want to wait till the end of the season, which, totally entitled to, that's the way we've got players in the past, so can't really grumble there. But some players obviously are quite keen to discuss new deals and are very happy here. Armour's the first one to do it. I wonder who the next one is. I'm going to have a guess. Who are we going to guess with who's going to be this afternoon? We're going to look stupid, obviously, when this comes out. But who do you reckon?
Let's look stupid. I'll say Feeney.
You go Morgan Feeney, yeah. I'm with you on that. I think it's Morgan Feeney's the most likely one. The only one I can think of, maybe Amari Patrick, maybe is one we might look at. But because I wonder with him, maybe he'll want to get tied down longer this time rather than wait till the last minute, get a deal somewhere and it not really work out there. That's the only reason I think maybe.
It's interesting to note the reason for the 3 years was so we didn't lose him on a Bosman after 2, which would still be possible. Yeah.
Exactly. So that common sense there really to get him tied down. But fantastic news, yeah. Just Jack Armour here till 2026. I mean, 2026 is when the next World Cup is, which is mad, really. Isn't it? You think he's tied down for that long now?
He won't be at the World Cup though, because Scotland won't qualify.
Well, he's not declared for Scotland yet. He's only played at under 19 level, so he could still play for England. That left back option's been a bit of a problem one for Gareth Southgate, hasn't it? So John Mellish on the left side of the defence and Jack Armour on the left back, wing back position. Yeah, I can see that happening in USA and Mexico and Canada. Definitely. Right, let's get on to the rest of the news then, Dan. First up, we've been waiting for United to do a ticket offer all season, haven't we? But finally, here it is. And it is 10 pun to get in the grun.
10 pun to get in the grun. It's Saturday afternoon, there's nowhere else to go. 10 pun to get in the grun. What else you gonna go and spend your lure on?
There you go, a little bit of audio there from the Waterworks. Their latest ditty. They've done a few now, haven't they? They've done obviously Ganning Up, Moxon with a Fox on, which is a belt in. I've had that stuck in my head. I've had all three of them stuck in my head for the last few days. But yeah, so for the Good Friday game against Tranmere Rovers, ticket prices have been slashed to £10, haven't they?
Yeah. Not my idea. Personally, I would have done this weekend for the.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that. I think
third v second. The only reason being, Tranmere is Good Friday, and I think we would have had a really good crowd anyway if we keep winning.
Yeah.
But no, fair play to them. The 10K. It wouldn't surprise me if it gets up to about 12 or 13. To be quite honest.
Yeah, I can see, especially if we get a couple of good results before that as well, and we're firmly in those automatic positions. I can see a really big crowd for this one.
Yeah.
I'd imagine I can see Tranmere. I know they're not having a great season. It looks like their season's pretty much petered out now, but I could still see them bringing 500 or 600 even on a bad thing, which is impressive enough, with the season they've had. And when you look at it, they've had a pretty awful season, haven't they? Considering what we expected from them, goals wise.
Strange team. They really are.
They're upright with the top for clean sheets. Defensively, they're a really impressive side, but they cannot score for toffee, and they just don't seem to know how to resolve that. In terms of signings in January, they let Elliot Nevitt go to Crewe, look one of their better attackers, and they've kept Kane Hemmings, who's not really proved to be a great signing for them. So he scored a few goals, but not that great. So yeah, strange one with them. But yeah, so it's £10 for adults, under 18s and under 14s are £5, although we should note under 14s do have to be accompanied into the ground. And under 7s are free again. Under 7s have to be accompanied because you don't want under 7 children running around free in the ground, really, do you? So yeah, the club are also doing a ticket donation scheme for this one for local business and fans, basically. If you're in exile who can't make it, and you think, so I want to help out a family who maybe are a little bit less fortunate and can't afford to go to the football, are struggling a bit, get in contact with the club and say, I want to buy a few tickets, and you can buy a few extras and help people out. So
I was down on Monday picking up a couple of tickets for the Stockport game, actually. Quick note, all games are available now till the end of the season, which is another good move. I've got a couple of mates coming down from Glasgow for it, so I was getting that, and someone I know was down, and they bought, I think it was 10 adults and 20 kid tickets for their business,
Brilliant stuff.
But there's plenty others have done so far,
Yeah, there's details about it on the club's website. And if you buy a certain amount of tickets as well. Oh, shut up, Alexa! Alexa, stop. There you go. There's a little treat for you. I've somehow managed to set Alexa off by there, but anyway. Yeah, so basically, if you go on the club website and find the details, if you donate a certain amount of tickets, you can. I think you can get like a player to come down to your business for a nice photo opportunity, and you'll get a mention on the club website and things like that. I've certainly seen, I think there's a used cars for sale guy has been mentioned, and Thomas Graham, obviously a long-term club sponsor, they've definitely done it as well. So you probably see a few more of them appearing, and yeah, definitely worth getting involved if you can. And yeah, it's just, there's such a good feel-good thing about the club, isn't there? And this 10 for 10 campaign hopefully is going to lift us to another victory. And, arguably, and I don't want to say this, it's not belittling Tranmere, but arguably our easiest game of the season that's left, probably. So, at home at least anyway.
Certainly home, yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. The home games, it's the only one that's not, in a playoff position or promotion position. So, yeah, hopefully that can give us that extra little bit of lift to get the result there. Final little bit of news to wrap up. The reserves had a game this week, Dan, didn't they?
Yeah, as usual, top secret. I never understand that, but yeah, they played a little trip over to Middlesbrough and played their under-21s. Some good minutes for a few of them coming back.
Particularly the ones that stand out are both Devitt and Dixon. So Devitt managed to get a full 90 minutes, which I think anybody knows is quite rare for Jamie these days, sadly. But Josh Dixon getting 45 minutes as well with no issues. Playing at wing back, so he's getting plenty of
Barkley got a full 90 minutes. Edmondson played 60 odd.
Dennis and JK got some minutes in their legs because they've not been played as much as well recently. Jaden Harris and Corey Whelan got 74 minutes in as well.
It must have been slightly weird for Robinson playing against his mates, basically.
Yeah, it's very strange, that one, isn't it, really? But there you go. I noted that the sub-keeper was Lewis Boyd, so I'm not sure if Gabe Breeze has got a little knock or something. I know Obviously, we know Scott Simons is still recovering from the finger injury he picked up. But no Gabe Breeze in there. That was an interesting one. I do wonder if maybe for the end of the season we're going to possibly load him out for a month or two, maybe just to get some games under his belt before the campaign finishes. But there you go. 1-1 draw it was. Christian Dennis scored from the penalty spot for us. Middlesbrough equalised with a, by all accounts, stunning volley late on in the game. So there you go. Good minutes, and yeah, the important thing is, I think, for both Devitt and Dixon as well to get through that injury-free. 2 games now they've played. That's a real boost, and surely you'd think they're both in contention to potentially even feature in the first team now, which, considering where Josh has come from, especially, that's a real boost for him, isn't it?
Definitely.
Loan Watch, not as much to cover this week because, we might as well nip it in the bud straight away. Sam Fishburne and Kai Nugent, neither of them played this weekend or even midweek games, because the mop of both of their games against Warrington and Bamber Bridge were fell foul of the weather. They're actually playing at Stalybridge Celtic this weekend, and then a Northumberland Cup Senior Cup tie against Whitley Bay. So that's the games for Sam. And for Kai, he was supposed to be playing against Cole. That was, again, victim of the weather, snow over in the hills above Lancashire. This weekend, they're making the journey down to Merseyside to take on City of Liverpool FC. I'm a bit annoyed about that because I would have gone to that if it had been the week after when we're playing Gillingham. But as it is, it's not. So we're going to have to give that one a miss. The other one's Max Kilsby. Well, we're going to talk about one goal-scoring left-back in a bit. But first up, heading north of the border to talk about another win for Annan and another appearance in goal for Max Kilsby, then.
Yeah, doing well, isn't he?
Yeah, that's 26 appearances now and 4 goals. Interesting, he's played at left back a lot for them because obviously he's a centre back more than anything. But he's a young player, I suppose. You're sort of finding your way in your position, aren't you? Really, it's not really set in stone that he would be a centre back. But really encouraging for him, isn't it? They went 1-0 down actually in this Annan against Elgin City at home, and it was Max that got the equaliser. It was a lovely sort of through ball. He did well to win the ball off the play, and a great finish from a tight angle into the roof of the net, wasn't it, really? And shouldn't really be scoring from there. You'd maybe question the goalkeeper slightly, but all in all, you take your chance, don't you, I guess. So ended up winning 4-1. That puts them back up to 3rd place. And this weekend they face the trip to Forfar Athletic, who actually are 6 points behind them, but they've got 2 games in hand, so it's a big game. If they can win this, that creates a little bit of distance. And it looks like they're probably going to get a playoff place this season, which, again, that'll be a great experience for Max, won't it?
Yeah, I'm just looking. It's 4-11 for him goals wise. It sort of. I know when Robinson came on loan, there was talk that he could possibly earn more come the summer, but I think Kilsby's sort of showing that we maybe need to just look at Kilsby instead.
Well, it's one of those
ones. Sort of, Armour and Mellish are going to be first choice, but at the moment, if you had to pick between Kilsby and Robinson, you'd probably stick with Kilsby, I think.
But then with Kilsby, I suppose, he's got an option on his contract, doesn't he? So trigger that option, if presuming it's on the same wage or maybe a slightly bigger wage, if you trigger him for another year, because obviously you allow a little bit of increase in inflation and stuff like that. Tie him down for another year and get him out on loan somewhere else if we think he's developing well enough. I don't, especially if they're going to cover the majority of the wage. For me, it's a no-brainer, really. Potentially, if you can get him out on loan to maybe a national league. If we go to League One, we get into a national league club on loan. Perfect, isn't it? If he goes to like a Gateshead or someone like that.
I think if we can do it where, I know when you loan to National League, you can have a 28-day recall.
Yeah, I think that's only the 3 months one, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, so after 28 days, you could bring him back in case something happened to someone,
Yeah, but I feel long-term wise, I feel like you look at it, he's scoring goals, you see it playing in a team that's doing well. I'd imagine he's got a decent chance of getting a deal. I've said this every week, but I feel like if a player's done that well in a loan spell, you really should be looking, especially someone that young, there's still time for them to develop. Give them another year and let's see how they do, basically. Yeah. I think it'd be silly to let him go now, but hey, Samo and Greg, I'm sure have had him watched every week so that they'll know how well he's done. Lewis Bell, doesn't get any better for Gretna 2008, does it, Dan?
No.
7th consecutive defeat with a 3-0 loss at Bowness United. Lewis did get another full 90 minutes. He's playing a full 90 minutes in every game, and from the reports we've had from Jeff Jackson, who regularly goes and watches football at that level when United are away, he says he's done really well, and he's a very standout player at that level. As somebody who looks far too good for that level, but it's the rest of the Gretna team who clearly are up to it at the moment, isn't it, really, sadly? So, yeah, you do wonder if he's going to have his deal extended next season. I say the chances are probably slim. In fact, I think, to be honest, for his own career, he'd probably be better off not and getting away somewhere and actually getting regular football at a decent level. What do you think, Dan?
Yeah, I think he's suffered from a certain someone completely overhyping.
Yeah, totally unfair.
And he's never. He got hit badly by COVID.
He did. That's
and
true.
It really hit him. I think it'd be best probably maybe looking if he could get to Workington or something and going again.
If Workington go up especially as well, that'd be probably a good level for him. If not, if he can get himself a National League North club or something like that, perfect, something like that. Even like a Gateshead, because it looks like Gateshead are probably going down, don't they? And I feel like for some of our players, that might be younger players, that might be a good destination for them next season. Actually, somewhere where they can maybe play a bit more regularly and show what they're capable of. But there you go. Just final bit. Dan Hill, a bit better news for Clayton Celtic though. Their game in Greater Manchester against Daisy Hill went ahead, and they'll be glad it did. They ran out 4-0 winners. 2 goals for Connor Hamill in this one, former Blue. We didn't put him in the XFL section because we don't tend to go down that low, do we, really, in terms of updates? But
not unless it's a completely random one.
Yeah, exactly. So a couple of goals for Connor Hamill in a 4-0 win. He played the full 90 in this one, Dan. That keeps them in touch with second bottom Runcorn Town. Still looks like they're going to be down near the bottom. I don't think there's any relegation from their level. I think it's all elections and stuff. And I imagine Clayton Celtic could probably be kept in it because they quite often want to keep areas in contact with the league, don't they, really, if you know what I mean? So hopefully they'll remain in. They had a midweek clash with Holker Old Boys that was postponed due to a waterlogged pitch. And this weekend they've got a trip over to North Yorkshire to take on Ilkley Town. And also I should note, Lewis Boyd is still occasionally appearing for Carlisle City. I think it's one of those ones where he can when they're needed. And he did feature at the weekend, didn't he, Dan? That sounded like a balmy game, Carlisle City, from what I saw an update on their Twitter feed. 3 goals disallowed, including one that was disallowed. And while the players were still celebrating, not knowing it was disallowed in the corner, the opposition, West Auckland, took the free kick for offside and were basically through on goal against Lewis Boyd and scored. So, interesting one, that one. Dan Kirkup sent up as well late off in that game, apparently. So, there's another ex-Blues update for you.
I think he was sent off for celebrating a goal from behind the goal.
I'm guessing that's probably because of the way it went.
I think it'd be something daft, like he'd been subbed and celebrated a goal and got sent off. There was something completely. I'll have to double check it.
Yeah, it sounded like a mad one anyway, really. But there you go. I did love how they sold it before the game, though. Carlisle City, did you see that? The team with the worst home record against the team with the worst away record face each other thing. Like, come on, lads. Give it the big sell at the very least, but there you go. Right, let's get to the match review then. Swindon Town 1, Carl United 2. Don't do it the easy way, do we, Dan, eh?
No.
What a ridiculous game, really, in terms of the finish. You know, it's, as we said in the introduction earlier on, it is one of those moments we're going to look back at this season, aren't we, and say, wow, what a season this was. That was a moment, aren't we?
Yeah, like I said at the top of the show, I've always wanted to say that, by the way. You know, those sort of moments are produced by teams who are doing things. Yeah. We're doing things.
Yeah, exactly that.
Suck it up, League Two. Adios.
Well, let's not get ahead of ourselves too much, yeah? So it's one of those me and Mike went down for this one. We drove down from Liverpool. Not nice enough drive, actually. I didn't realise how easy it actually is to get to. It's not as difficult as you think. And it's funny, we got there. Mike was very insistent that we go to a Burger King across the road from the ground. And because I was saying, let's go to Spoons in town or something like that, get some food. He's like, no, there's a Burger King on the ground, we'll park and we'll go there. Took us a while to find somewhere to park. Finally got in there, paid for the parking. Walked down to this Burger King, drive-through only. I've never seen a man look so disappointed in my life as I did when Mike was like, there was like like that. He was so gutted. He had to go chipping around the corner, which wasn't too bad. But yeah, playing in front of a big crowd, 9,000 plus, with a 500 plus away following. I don't know, when I saw the lineup and I saw Charlie Austin in there was a little bit for me like, this could be a tough one. As it was quite a balanced game, this actually. There wasn't a huge amount to pick between the two sides. And yet, we're coming out of it, and I'm thinking to myself, we deserve that win. And we'll get onto that in the talking points in a bit, but the Swindon fans maybe disagree with that slightly. I'd throw it back and say they're wrong, but I'll talk about why later. In terms of the team selection, were you surprised to see Senior come back in for Gibson?
No.
No, I wasn't.
Without being harsh to Jordan, more just because Senior is a proper right wing back, whereas Gibson can play there, but it's not his strongest position.
And his best bits against Grimsby actually were when he played more as a winger, really, than a wing back, wasn't it? Really, so it's not quite as comparable as the Senior playing there, is it?
No, and it's just a bit more balance overall, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Only one other change, and it proved quite a timely one, didn't it? Jaden Harrison came off the bench for Ryan Edmondson for his first appearance in a first-team squad since mid-December, so 3 months out with his shoulder injury. Back earlier than expected, though, which is really impressive. And yeah, so, I mean, in first half, I mean, did you manage to catch most of this, Daniel? Were you listening to it, I'm guessing?
I was driving about. I had a couple of jobs to do Saturday, which is quite rare for me. So I was in the car park of B&M at St Nicholas. Mrs. went in and I sat in the car so I could listen to the match.
Very nice.
I then got home just in time for the winning goal.
There's something quite exciting, isn't there, or something quite enjoyable about sitting and listening to a game in the car, isn't it, on the radio? It's very old school, but it's kind of comforting in a weird way. First half, it was quite balanced, actually. There wasn't really much. I think we edged it. And when I look back at the highlights, actually, yeah, we did. I mean, in terms of chances, they had a couple, basically, and Hepburn Murphy was their biggest threat, and he paced the burn and a bit of trickery. And it was weird because he was sort of playing down the middle, which was a bit weird. I thought, get him out wide, surely, is what you need to be doing. I mean, the first one he had was when he twisted Mellish a little bit inside out, managed to get to the byline and hit a ball across, and nobody was looking to get in. I thought that's prime territory for Charlie Austin to be nicking in and tapping the ball into the net. As it was, he was stood on 12 yards out on the penalty spot almost, and it was like, what are you doing there? And the other one was one that Mellish nearly created for him, which you've probably seen, Dan, where Mellish tried to clear the ball with his right foot, managed to slice it miles into the air, back into his own area, where I don't know why he's trying to head it, when he probably could have taken a touch and hit it. But luck will have it for us, he headed it wide. But in terms of our chances, Joe Garner Joel Senior, that was second half, sorry. Joe Garner probably had the best one in terms of a free kick in from Moxon on the left, and nice flicked header that Bryn did well to clutch out of the air. There was another one that fell to Armour, nice after a bundle in the box by Mellish, and it was a good block by the defender, to be fair. He did exactly the right thing, Jack, just hit it first time, but defender got a block in.
I'll tell you something.
Yeah.
The next goal Joe Garner scores is going to be some cheer, because the work he's put in recent games, very unselfish as well.
Mike has made this point, right? When you look at his stats, like, since he's come back, he's got one goal, and I don't think has he got an assist yet? He might have an assist. 1 in 10 he's got. Yeah, 1 in 10, and I'm not even sure he's actually even got an assist.
He's not listed on my app as an assist at the moment, but he's probably got pre-assists, if there's such a thing.
Yeah, exactly. He's been so involved in the play, and he's such a nuisance that he's a massive part of why we're doing well. And I imagine Christian Dennis is a bit frustrated sitting there thinking, why am I not? He's not scoring. Why am I not getting a chance? But overall, it's making a better difference to the team, and that's just a shame for Christian. But he'll get his chance, I'm sure. First half, I think we just about shaded it. There was another one where Patrick nearly nipped him, but the ball got away from him and the keeper came out to claim it. Into the second half, let's get straight onto it. What a goal from Jack Armour.
Yeah.
Unbelievable finish, wasn't it?
With his right foot as well.
Well, yeah, so basically corner comes in. Charlie Austin has his best chance of the afternoon heading it against his own bar. Swindle scramble it out to the edge of the box and it falls to Armour, and they must be thinking, he's fallen to the left back on his right foot. This isn't going to be a problem. Turns out it is. side-footed half volley on his right foot into the top corner from, 20, 25 yards. Did he mean it?
Yeah.
I'm not having it. I'm not having it at all. There's no way he's gone in there thinking, I'm going to try and put this in the top corner for that shot. I think fair play, he's done exactly the right thing in terms of getting over the ball and controlling it. And I imagine if you asked him to do that 100 more times, I reckon 97, 98 of them, he fires miles wide or over the bar or nowhere near goal, basically. But that one time he's caught it perfectly. And that's all you need, isn't it, really?
Certainly is.
It unbelievable finish. I mean, like, their commentary was even saying, weren't they? They were saying, like, wow, like, you know, and to be fair, their co-commentator, Marcus Fjortoff, who's the son of Jan Ager, you might remember, Swindon legend. I spoke to him the day before the game and I was telling him a bit of sort of information about our squad and stuff and bigging up John Mellish and things like that. But I did say to him, look, you know, that Armour's such a consistent player. He's very, you know, gets up and down the left. He's played, you know, almost 100 league games. Turns out this was his 100th league game, actually. And he's Mr. Consistent. And he even said, like, look, you know, you don't anticipate your left wing back's going to put that into the top corner, do you? Really, just pure luck. But there you go. So yeah, brilliant goal. We'll talk about Jack again shortly. In terms of the other chances, McEachran then had a free kick from the left. He found Austin on that. I mean, Charlie Austin's got to bury that, surely.
You would think so, wouldn't you?
I was so disappointed with him. I've got that down as a talking point in a minute, but he was seriously disappointed in this game. There was another chance in terms. The senior actually nearly created a great chance, very similar to what Hepburn Murphy did in the first half, where he hit a low ball across the box that no one was getting in there for, which was a bit frustrating. McEachran had a great free kick that was well saved by Thomas Holy, and then tame shot by Wakeling that sort of went wide from distance. There was a period where they started to put a bit of pressure on in the second half, but then came the goal, and it's a frustrating goal to concede, isn't it?
Yeah, it was. It just one of them, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's kind of like we get an initial block in, the ball comes out to the edge of the box, the shot's blocked, it loops up, and fair play, he does well to shield the ball and get it over to his left foot and then just hit a low drive that Holy's got no chance with. And it's interesting that I listened to the guys, you know, who did the Swindon Town pod that we chat with, the Low Strangers, and they said they felt that our players were on our hands and knees and thought they'd blown it and thought we're going to end up losing this. I didn't get that impression. The impression I got was that a couple of them maybe had cramp, and a couple of them were like just frustrated of like, you know, we've let them back into this, right, let's sort ourselves out. And that's what we did, actually. The next 10 minutes, as much as they equalised and you thought, right, they're in the ascendancy here, they might nick it. We didn't have anything to do after that. They didn't threaten the goal at all. I can't remember Holy having a single save to make after the goal. And we just slowly started to creep back into it. We continued with our pressing, and that led to the goal, didn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, Jody Morris, the Swindon manager afterwards, to be fair, said exactly the same things as, I don't know why we're messing about with it at the back. And I did warn the Swindon podcast. I did say to them, look, you know, teams at this level mess about with it at the back, and we don't. We just get on with it. We get rid of it when we have to. But we'll press teams who do that, and we'll take advantage, as we did against Crawley. And we did it here again, kept going till the 95th minute at this point, as it was. And Saul Bryn, as the ball played back to him I think he plays a goal kick short, plays about a bit, comes back to him under pressure. He scuffs his clearance straight at his own defender. The ball falls nicely to Edmondson, who's already put pressure on him. He finds Moxon. Moxon lays it to Armour, gets the corner. And then Moxon, very brave corner to take, isn't it, actually, when you look at it, because he'd taken one a couple of minutes earlier and he'd completely fluffed it, basically, put it onto the roof of the net, didn't get it right. To then go with pretty much going for the exact same style of corner, looking high looping to the far post. If you mess it up again, you know, you look back and say, why didn't you try something different? Nope, he stuck with his guns, played a lovely high ball to the far post. Edmondson had the freedom of Wiltshire, get his head on it, nods it past Bryn, and pandemonium. Unbelievable, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I just watched it before I came on to record, and I still can't believe he's just stood there on his own.
Well, if you watch it back, Mellish on most of the goals, on most of the corners, stands on the keeper, doesn't he? He basically blocks it, tries to block him as much as possible, and then sort of steps off him at the last second, so he doesn't get in trouble, get like booked or given away an offside. For this one, he doesn't. He gets more involved in it. He's looking for the ball a bit more. And what happens is, one of their men, because it's sort of zonal marking, is sort of on Edmondson, but then he peels off and gets attracted to the ball, and Edmondson does exactly the right thing. He's like, I'm not going with you. And he takes a step back into that space. By the time the defender realises, oh shit, I've left Edmondson unmarked, Mellish is there. And Mellish doesn't like hold him off or deliberately block him. He just backs into Mellish. Mellish does nothing wrong with what he does. He's just holding his ground. As it is, Edmondson gets a free header and nods it in. And like I said, the scenes at the end were incredible, weren't they? Even Jeff Hoff was getting involved, wasn't he? He ran the length of the pitch to get in, and Paul Gerrard was there as well.
That's one thing I noticed as well. Like Mick Kelly hardly played a second apart from trophy games, right in the middle of it, and that speaks volumes for the attitude and the goodwill and the good feeling in the camp.
Yeah, the atmosphere of the squad is incredible. You can tell, and that's something that I said to the Swindon guys. That's what Simmer's built. He doesn't want bad eggs in there. He wants good characters. He's very keen to make sure, people in there have got the right attitude. And you've got, like you said, a backup keeper there, I'm sure is desperate to play league games. But as it is, he's getting, he's still getting involved and he's loving it. And he might not get a contract next season. He might be gone in the summer, but he might go away with a league winners medal. And he's technically, in terms of appearance, I think the clubs get to decide, don't they? They get to hand out medals to a number of players. Well, I'm sure he'll get one because he's playing a big part in pushing Holy on to be a better keeper. And like
and he
said,
travels everywhere.
Exactly. He's a big part. He does the warm ups. He helps Holy in that sense. And it's just nice to see the real camaraderie in that squad. And like you said, I mean, even someone like that having a good character like Jeff in the squad, who clearly really gets into it, and it was fantastic just to see the reaction when that goal went in, and the fans were going mad in the stands as well. There was a fella there who's on a stag do who was being made to wear a full Hartlepool United kit. He was down at the front with his top off, swinging around his head. But
sensible. You don't want a Hartlepool top in the middle of the celebrations, do you?
Exactly. Well, to be fair, with that physique, he's in better shape than I am, so I certainly wouldn't be doing that if it was me. You wouldn't want to be seeing me swinging a shirt above my head, so fair play to him. But it was just like the real goodwill feeling afterwards leaving there. And I bumped into a couple of fans that we both know, and they were saying to me, like, this feels better than that equaliser. So the winner that Feeney got at Oldham last season. Do I think it's as good at? It's hard to tell yet because it depends on what the end result is. But it's got to be right up there with that. It was just an incredible feeling when that goal went in, and that was it. They had a kick-off, and they had a chance to actually loft the ball up from the kick-off and have a go, but they tried running in, and then they tried this weird low scoop ball that Feeney was able to just shield back to Holy. Really, really weird decision making from Swindon. All the same, it's all right being a possession and passing team, but look at the stats. They've had double the ball we've had pretty much, 64% possession to 36 for us. So what? They only created they created a few more chances, but a lot of them were long range pot shots and nothing really that was ever going to threaten Holy. We had more on target than they have, and pass success 75% to our 52. Great, pass it about your back four if you want to do that. That's your choice. But for us, we'll get it up the pitch and we'll use the ball better in attacking areas and take advantage of it. So there you go. Should note, WhoScored.com man of the match once again, Owen Moxon, keeping himself right up there in the top in the rating of the WhoScored.com. He's got to be a strong contender for League 2 Player of the Season now, surely.
You would think so, wouldn't you?
Because the thing is, with Orient, they don't really have one player who's excelled, do they? Really, that's the thing. They're a really good, solid unit. For Stevenage, I guess it's Pierre Gianni, but for us, Moxon's been incredible, hasn't he, in terms of the way he's played? So that's the big thing there. Right. Should we do the 6-second reviews, Dan?
Yeah.
Right. Give me 1 sec. Let me dig this out. First up, we'll have Michael from Formby. He's sent us in one.
Just an absolutely outstanding result. I think, a good team would have got a point on Saturday. There's no shame in that. Leighton Orient only managed a point at Swindon. but a great team will get 3 points. And, you know, it just shows the never say die attitude to keep on trying to get the winner. Swindon kind of wound up on top, which coincided with Moxon getting booked, I think. They kind of just got their foot on the game a little bit, which obviously led to their equaliser. But their fans were kind of moaning that they were passing it out a bit near the end, but we were pressing them, we were causing them problems, we were forcing them to give away corners. And ultimately, that's what won us the game. You know, it's easy for them to blame them, but we were forcing them into these situations. Paul Huntington, absolutely outstanding. I mean, you expect him to win every header, and he did that. And I think Swindon were expecting that from him, and they were putting him some low crosses, and he was dealing with all of them as well. Just absolutely brilliant. I mean, everyone was brilliant, but yeah, fantastic performance from Huntington. And Edmondson off the bench, what an option to have. I mean, I feel sorry for Simo right now with the options he has, but for me going forward, you've still got to start Garner and Patrick. I think they look like a very good strike partnership, and Garner, of all of our strikers, is most likely to put a defender on a booking, and I love seeing Ryan Edmondson coming on off the bench against a centre-back who's on a booking.
That's a pretty fair assessment there. I think what he said at the start is pretty much what you were saying before, isn't it? In terms, that's what a great team does, getting a result in a place like that. So, fantastic. I mean, his point about Huntington, absolutely. I mean, I had him as my man of the match, to be fair, for this. I thought he was outstanding in terms of, winning his headers, getting the ball away, clearing it, just dealing with trouble. The one time they didn't deal with trouble was the time when Swindon scored frustratingly. And I think that's probably the slight thing where they thought, it's just typical that, isn't it? That's just what happens. Let's go through some of the talking points before we do another 6-second review then. Jack of all trades. I mean, couldn't really pick a more fitting way to mark 100 league appearances, could he, Jack Armour?
No, and despite what James Phillips said, it wasn't his first league goal for Carlisle. Because he scored at Northampton at the start of Christmas.
I wonder if he got a little bit mixed up there and was trying to say first goal of the game, basically, but his wording didn't come out that great. I think that's probably what he meant, really, but just the sod law, isn't it?
We'll let him off.
Yeah. I mean, another great performance all round, really, from Jack in terms of getting up and down the pitch. And, they did say before the game, the Swindon guys, that Romeo Hutton was their big threat in terms of, getting balls into the box and swinging them in. I don't remember him putting a single cross into the box in this game. And that's a testament to how good Jack was. He kept him pinned back as much as anything. And when he did get forward, he just dealt with him, really. So, really testament to him. And obviously, he doesn't turn 22 until a month today. That's astonishing, isn't it?
Jack Armour's just sort of like he just gets on with it. He's become a solid 7 out of 10 every week. I mean, he would get 8 for Saturday because he scored, but he just comes in, does his job, no fuss, cracks on, and his new contract, fully deserved, and he's going to make us money unless we go up to the Championship, which is entirely possible, of course.
Yeah, he could well do, couldn't we? Yeah, I just feel like the way he's playing, the way in terms of his fitness levels are, he's a lad who could end up making 500 or 600 appearances in the Football League. That I really do think, because he's just so solid. And like you said, he's got the ability probably to step back and be centre-back at some point as well, if needs be. So, yeah, really fantastic stuff from Jack once again. I mean, in terms of the overall performance, last week I described the performance as an efficient one. This week, I think it was very much a case of patience, taking your time, not getting overexcited. Very even first half, slightly edged it. Came out strong start of second half. Thought we were the better side for maybe the first 10 or 15. No panic when we went behind when they had their strong spell, and just kept working away and got the reward at the end. Get great pressing at the final minute, and there was no case of sitting there saying we're happy with a point here. What we did is we were like, right, let's put a base here where we don't concede and lose that point, but let's try and have a little go here and see if we can maybe nick it. And that's where we got our reward, really. Let's talk about Edmo's return before we do Regan's 6-second review then, Dan. He's had a frustrating first season at Brunton Park, hasn't he? Is it fair to say?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm just looking at his. I think it was his 6th goal this season.
6th goal this season, and all of his 5 league goals have been headers. That's one John Coleman, I think, posted up at the weekend.
Yeah, and I think previously whenever he scored, we lost.
Did we? Wow.
Oh, we didn't win anyway. He scored against Sutton, 1-1.
Yeah.
2-1 defeat at Walsall. 3-3 drawn at Harrogate. And 3-2 defeat at home to Orient, where he got a red as well.
And also the 2-1 loss at Shrewsbury in the Cup. At the start of the season as well. So,
yeah. My app won't scroll back that far. But
right, well,
so that was his first goal in a winning side.
Yeah. So obviously he's been very unlucky. He picked that injury up, didn't he? After that Shrewsbury game, he was out for quite a while. Came back, had in and out of the team around about that point, and then he looks like he's getting strong, and he's pinned down a place, gets that terrible shoulder injury from that ridiculous challenge on him.
He's actually scored 6 in 14 games, if you include the FA Cup and the League Cup. Yeah. I mean, we don't count the trophy because that's nothing.
I'd say this first game back after 3 months out. Looks sharp and decent on the ball, smart enough to peel off the nod home, the winner at the end, which shows you what a clever player he is. He's come back 2 weeks earlier than expected as well, which is a real massive bonus. It's quite remarkable we can leave one of the top scorers on the bench, isn't it? Really, and I said this to Mike when I was leaving the ground on Saturday. I think it's almost going to be a blessing in disguise, these knocks that Edmondson's had. Because I think if he's fully fit, I think he has a great season. He's going to be comfortably into double figures. And actually, we'd probably be looking and thinking we're going to struggle to keep hold of him in the summer. Because he's not going to have as much of a chance to impress. I think he's, he stays next season. And I think if we get up to League One, I think he can excel at that level. I think he's got the ability, definitely.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. Right, let's do Regan's 6-second review of the game.
Yeah, I'll get it out the way early. Jack Armour, goal of the season. Weak foot, edge of the box. It's an absolute rocket. Unbelievable goal. It's one of the best I've seen following the Blues. In terms of them, I thought going down, I'd have took a point because they're a pretty good side and they're one of them who knock the ball around. But like a lot of teams in League Two, they don't really go anywhere with it. It's just possession for the sake of it. And I saw a Swindon fan moaning about our style of play, saying we just knock it up to the land of the Giants, but that's effective football, and that's why we're at the top end of the league. Give me our style of play over theirs any day of the week. It was quite boring. There was a bit of time in the second half where they were on top, and I was a bit worried, but there was nothing really probing from them, and we forced a mistake to get the corner. Mox swings it in, and who are marking, Mellish blocks a man, and Edmonds just knocks it into, send the away and into absolute limbs, I went flying. There was a few of the lads going absolutely flying all over the spot, and that is why you follow the Blues, You spend years watching absolute dross for moments like that. It shows good desire as well. It's exactly what we need, We've got 10, 11 cup finals left now where we've just got to keep digging in and getting these 3 points, and Saturday shows we're really capable of that, and we've just got to go again for another massive game on Saturday. So, as always, shag is shag, and it's as simple as that. Up the Blues.
That's what we're waiting for. That's a pretty fair assessment, I think. Yeah, he's right about in terms of there's people all over the place not standing when that goal went in. It brings me on quite nice, actually. I'll talk a little bit about Swindon now. I thought they were quite a decent side, actually, decent enough. And I think if they had a few additions to that side, a little bit of experience to the spine maybe, I could see them being up there challenging for top 3 next season. I still think they're quite short this season, and they're not going to make the playoffs now. They're too far off, and they've not really got the form to propel themselves into there. But I've been on their forum and I look and seen a few comments to it. I don't buy their claims that they deserve to win from it. Not at all. They had a 10-15 minute spell where they got on top, and what it was, it's when they made their 3 subs, but then we made our 2 subs, and we didn't really adapt to the 2 subs of Edmondson and Gibson coming on very well. It took us a while to actually realise. I think there was kind of feeling, is Gibson playing as a number 10 in the midfield, or is he playing out wide with Edmondson out wide the other side of, or down the middle with Patrick playing or whatever. We didn't really work it out, and they took advantage of that and they got on top, and obviously the bookings to the midfielders didn't help either, really. That made it different. All 3 of our midfielders got booked, which it was not a dirty game in the slightest. The referee was poor in that sense, I thought. But last 10 minutes, we edged it. We just started to get back into it again. And I think overall, if you look back at it in terms of the best moments and stuff, I think a point would have been a fair result. But actually, us nicking it, I don't really see a massive problem with that, to be honest. Quick comment on Charlie Austin. Absolutely dog shit he was. He was awful. I wanted to say to Mike in the game at half, I wanted to say, I'm not impressed with Austin at all here. But I thought, no, if I say that, he's going to go and score now, isn't he? So I kept shut. And then once he got subbed, I said, you know what? He's been absolutely awful for them. The total contrast to what Garner is for us. Garner, fair play. He hasn't got the goals, but his all-round contribution, brilliant. He's been outstanding. Austin looked a couple of clam overweight, and what he was doing, he was trying to do what Garner is in terms of getting involved and linking play and coming back. But actually what they needed was someone in the box to get on the end of stuff for them, and he just didn't really offer that. And that does show the gamble, doesn't it, Dan, in terms of when you bring a player like that in, it can work, but sometimes it can disrupt the rhythm of your team, can't it?
Yeah, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Luckily for us, it seems to be working.
Yeah, it is perfect, isn't it, for us, Garner? And I suppose it helps. Austin's similar in the sense
Stop press.
Go on.
Stop press.
Go on.
Another tweet from the club. So in about 10 minutes, we will have some more news.
Well, by then, hopefully, we'll be into the second half of the show. So what we'll do is we'll drop it in at the start of the second half, maybe. So there you go. Yeah, in terms of just wrapping it up in terms of the match review bit, and then we'll just do a quick League Two roundup. Strength and depth, just at the right time, Dan. We're just getting those players back, and surely, if you're a Swindon Town player, whatever, looking at that bench for the game, you're thinking, blimey, they've got some players to come on, haven't they?
Well, Dennis, Edmondson, Gordon, straight away.
Yep. Corey Whelan, can slot it into a defence and do a job wherever.
Yeah.
Jack Robinson, obviously, you're not going to know as much about, I guess, but he offers something. And Gibson, he's one of the top assisters in the division still, despite the fact he's been out of the team a little bit lately. So, just goes to show, doesn't it? Right, let's do a quick League Two roundup. Unless there's anything else you want to talk about from the game, Dan?
Nah.
No, I think we've covered that, haven't we? Right, let's do a League Two roundup then. Well, first up, Dan, no game for Leyton Orient. Their trip to Mansfield fell foul of the weather. The only game in League Two to fall foul of the weather, but I guess Mansfield's one of those places where it may be a little bit more susceptible to that, possibly.
They had a good snow coverage from the photo I saw.
Yeah, so that allowed all the other sides to potentially close the gap, which obviously United did. But also, Stevenage, they closed the gap. They picked up a 3-1 home win over Walsall to bounce back from their surprise loss at Rochdale last week. I mean, I have to say, I said this to the Stevenage guy, and obviously we're going to do the Stevenage preview in a minute, but I kind of looked at him and thought, their next two games, you couldn't ask for a nicer set of home games to follow up that Rochdale defeat, could you? Walsall and Crewe at home. Yeah. Two sides who, are listing towards mid-table for the rest of the season. You're looking at that thinking, that'll do me quite nicely, aren't you? So there's that. Northampton missed a chance, though, to close the gap anymore. They only closed it by 1 point. Messed up at Hartlepool. They only picked up a point in a 1-1 draw there. There was a dodgy moment in this, though, wasn't it? I think Jack Sowerby possibly had like a broken nose or something, from an elbow, and the player only got booked for it. So, a little bit of a disappointing one for them there. Bradford, they also stumbled to a 1-1 draw at Newport, while Salford lost 4-3 in a thrilling Friday night game at Crewe. I don't think anyone said that for a while, have they? Because they've been poor. But I mean, that was it. Did you see what happened with this one with Gary Neville, though? Because obviously, Salford went 3-2 up on like 80-odd minutes, I think, of something. And he tweeted something like, fantastic result, whatever, great getting a win or whatever. And then Crewe went and promptly scored twice in injury time to win. So it's the old adage and lesson there, isn't it?
I noticed in the Team of the Week as well, a couple of Salford players got in who got beat. Yet we win 2-1 away and we didn't get any players in the team.
And our left-back scores a wonder goal as well.
Yeah,
it just goes to show, it was a strange one, isn't it? But so that's a bit of... Salford are a very hit-and-miss team. I could see them potentially missing out on that playoff place, just because I don't think they're consistent enough. Stockport, they ended their recent poor run with a 1-0 win at Colchester. So basically, ourselves and Stevenage and Stockport closed the gap, whereas Bradford and Salford and Northampton missed a decent opportunity really to sort of close in a bit more. Into midweek, Stevenage got a 1-0 win over Crewe, which we'll talk about shortly. That took them back up to second. Northampton closed the gap with a 1-0 victory against Mansfield, while Bradford could only manage a 0-0 draw at Walsall. In fact, no, is that last week? I might have got that wrong there. I think that's last week's one. Sorry, I included that one by accident. But there you go. And that's it, isn't it, really? So, yeah. Pretty happy in terms of review stuff. We'll take a short break, and then we'll be back with the second half of the show.
Hi, it's Morgan Feeney, and you're listening to the Brunton Bugle.
Deliberately picked that just in case it's him who's announced as this contract, and we're going to find that out any second now. Basically, it's frustrating. We're both keeping an eye on the official website, aren't we? While we're recording, and we're just constantly refreshing, hoping the news comes up. But
have we got like a ding dong type noise?
I might have something here. There might be some sort of noise. I've got a tumbleweed. I think I've got a drum roll somewhere in here. I think I'll see if I can find that.
Yeah, I think a drum roll over a tumbleweed.
Let me see if I can get that added before we get going any further. But yeah, into the second half of the show. So obviously we're going to be previewing both the Stevenage and the Bradford games, aren't we, Dan? We had a little look and we were like, we could potentially, do
drum
a
roll.
second one for them.
Drum roll.
Let's have a drum roll. Bloody long drum roll, that, isn't it?
Callum Guy has signed a two-year deal with a further year option.
Oh, that is good news. And bear in mind, he's an option as well at the end of the season.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. I mean, fair play. He's been fantastic this season. And again, I mean, how many appearances is he on now? We'll have a quick check of that before we go any further. I'm going to get up his stats if it ever loads. Oh, it's so bloody slow, this thing. But yeah, brilliant. I mean, we sometimes goes a bit unmentioned what a good season he's having is, doesn't it, really, in terms of this campaign. I'm just looking at it now. So he's got 114 league appearances. On top of that, in the Cups, he's got another 13. So he's closing on 130 appearances overall for us. He's had his seasons affected a little bit by injury a couple of times, hasn't he, I think, as well. But, well, yeah, fantastic. Great news to see him tied down for a longer deal. Someone who's really stepped up, having had the captaincy taken off him, hasn't he, really? It's a real testament to, not sulking about something like that and just getting on with it, isn't it?
Yeah. There was a little part at the start of the season where he just didn't seem 100%, but from the turn of the year, he's been absolutely fantastic.
And he's added goals to his game as well, which is a big thing that we didn't have before, and not boring goals either. I mean, arguably, at the end of the season, come the goal of the season, he'll have 3 goals in there, won't he? His goals against Salford, Doncaster and Wimbledon, all brilliant strikes. So, yeah, fantastic news. Callum Guy tied down for a longer deal as well, at least till the summer of 2025. But obviously with that option, it's effectively till the summer of 2026. And that's the advantage of having a manager on a long-term deal as well, isn't it? You can get these players tied down on longer deals. And I'd almost be looking in the summer, if we go up, get Simmer's deal extended by an extra year as well. Have him tied down to 2026. Brilliant stuff. Right, on to the preview section, Dan. Mike has done us the question of the week, so we'll do the question of the week first before we go to the behind enemy lines. And here is the question Mike has sent in.
In 2005, we beat Stevenage in the Conference Player Final to go back to the Football League the first time of asking. Who did Sky Sports award Man of the Match for this game?
That's a belter, that.
I mean, I'm going to guess it's not Peter Murphy. That seems far too obvious.
Yeah.
I guess it's not a Stevenage player as well. It's got to be a Carlisle player. I'm thinking of the lineup. You had Holmes and Murray in attack. You had Glenn in nets. Your back forward. Was Baharol started? Or was Arneson? I think it was Baharol, wasn't it? Baharol at right back. Cowan at left back. Your centre backs were Livesey and Gray. Midfield of Peter Murphy, Chris Billy and Chris Lumsden, plus Adam Murray. Was Adam Murray probably starting that? I wonder if it was Adam Murray, maybe,
No, I think he was on the bench.
Was he? Who was starting? Brendan McGill maybe started that game, can't remember. Who you thinking?
I'm going to go for Matt Glennon.
Do you reckon Matt Glennon?
Yeah.
Okay, I part of me sort of agreeing with you on that. I think you might be right, but...
I need to see the full stats of the game again, wouldn't you?
I don't know how involved he was, really. It's one of those weird ones, isn't it? Yeah, I'm going to go... All right, you're going Matt Glennon. I should really pick someone different, shouldn't I? I'm going to go with Tom Cowan, then. So here's the answer to that question.
And the answer is Derek Holmes.
Oh, okay. There's part of me in my head was thinking, oh, maybe it was Derek Holmes because he definitely started and he was a nuisance up top. But
Yeah.
play. All right, okay. So there you go. That's the question of the week out of the way. Right, let's get into it then. Behind enemy lines. This week I spoke to Matt from the Stevenage FC podcast. Matt must be one of the most enthusiastic fans of a club I've ever met in my life. So positive about his team, which is really great to see. And I mean, why wouldn't you be right now if you're a Stevenage fan? Things are going brilliant for them. What did we talk about? We talked about how far the two sides have come in the last 12 months. The goalkeeper crisis they've faced this season, which has been quite incredible. Very reminiscent of us in 2000. Back then, if anyone remembers, that season of goalkeepers was ridiculous
Peter
for us.
van der Kwak.
And the name, I won't mention the one that you'd never like me mentioning. And whether this weekend's game really is a winner-takes-all situation. So here's the chat I had with Matt. Matt, I had a listen to your preview episode before our chat that we're doing now, and I thought there was a really good point in there, so I'm going to throw it back to you and put it to you again. So go back to April last year. You travelled up to Brunton Park to see the dead rubber fixture between our two sides who have just avoided relegation. If someone told you 11 months later you'd be back to see second v third in arguably one of the games of the season in League Two, you'd have called them a nutter, surely, wouldn't you?
Oh my God, would you, right? And by the way, first of all, thanks for listening to our pod. I've got to be honest with you, when you just told me, I was over the moon. But yeah, no, to be honest with you, it's crazy, isn't it? We were talking about it on the pod, and, you know, to think that our two teams were, you know, relatively down there. Obviously, I know that we were closer to the relegation zone than yourselves, but, you know, two teams that have been down in that bottom half. And yeah, if someone would have tapped you on the shoulder and said, oh, here you go, chaps, in a year's time, it'd be third v second, you never would have believed it. So, look, we're absolutely over the moon. It's going to be an amazing game. And do you know what? I'm going to own it. I think it's one of the biggest league games I've seen a Stevenage team playing in a long time. So, yeah, well, what a crazy year it's been, right?
It's been mad, I think it's fair to say, of both teams. I mean, what has gone right for you guys this season then? Because I looked down at your squad, and it's not a bad squad, I have to say that. You know, there's a bit of quality spray in there, but I don't think anyone would look at it and say, that's a top three squad in terms of quality. Is it a case of having a good sort of togetherness in there and a squad that, you know, actually fits well together? Because it's easy to throw a squad together with a lot of quality looking players, but having a squad that fits and works in tandem can often be the challenge, can't it?
Yeah, no, look, I do agree with some of that. I think, I did think we did recruit some really good players. You know, the likes of Dan Sweeney that just won the league and Danny Rose. But yeah, I completely see your point. You know, we haven't exactly gone out there and signed the Sam Hoskins or Andy Cooks, right? But I think what we've done really well is, first of all, we've got a proper manager in the door. And I know we've said it a lot this season, but Steve Evans really is the first proper manager we've ever had at the club of Football League experience. So I think that's kind of been the route to our success this season. I think the identity of football that we've created with the players we've got works. A lot of the players that we've brought in are winners. And, you know, if you look at some of the players like Jordan Robertson, again, I say it again, Dan Sweeney, Danny Rose, Alex Gilby, they've all been playing for sides recently who've been up the top of their league. So they're winners. They know how to play. And I think on top of that, it's been a mentality with our team, you know, a never die attitude. They play until the very last whistle. And all of a sudden they've found themselves with a lot of wins in the bag and a bit of momentum behind them. So I think, first of all, again, I go back to it. It's the manager and the job that he's done for us as a club. Oddly, actually, it would be a year ago tomorrow that Steve Evans was appointed manager at the club. And to think that he's taken us from 22nd to second place is an incredible achievement. But yeah, look, good group of players. We built an identity, and fortunately, it's worked out for us.
You've mentioned Steve Evans there, so I'll jump ahead to a question I had for later. But Steve Evans, a man who divides the opinion of football fans across the country, I think it's very fair to say that. How close is he to getting to Graham Wesley in terms of legendary status at your club now?
what I certainly think he's very close. And we Graham achieved a lot at the club, but I just think, for me personally, and other Stevenage fans might disagree, but I think if we were to get promoted, I would label that as the biggest achievement in the club's history, because for the past 3 to 4 years we've only been going one way, and that's downwards. And it's almost been a fate thing. Maybe we're going to end up back in the non-league, and it's looked like that for 3 years. The turnaround has been, I've never known a turnaround like this at a football club in the Football League. And I would certainly put Steve, if we get promoted, as probably the most successful manager we've had in a short tenure. So, it's not even the league stuff that we've achieved. It's also stuff in the FA Cup when we beat Aston Villa, and, the season's been incredible. So for me, if we were to achieve promotion, in my opinion, it would be the greatest achievement in the club's history in terms of where we've been for 4 years. And, Steve Evans is going to hopefully be the man that we all look back on in the future, and say that was probably one of the most successful managers we've ever had at the club.
It's a fair point, that, because the last time you got to League One, you very much had momentum behind you, didn't you? Coming up from non-league football. So this time you're starting from a low base of having, like you said, surviving based on Macclesfield going bust effectively, wasn't it, last time? That's the reason why you didn't go down after COVID, which is, when you look back at it, you must think, wow, that's the luck you get sometimes in football, isn't it? It just works for you. Well, you've mentioned about the FA Cup run there, so let's talk about that. What was going through your mind when you got that corner late on in that game?
It was an incredible night. Obviously, the bread and butter for us is League Two, but as you always know, FA Cup football for especially smaller clubs of our size is great. And it was an incredible night. I think going into it, we just wanted the team to play well. That was the consensus. We knew that if the game's level late on, we've got a chance. We scored so many last-minute goals, and it played out that way. We got to the last 10 minutes. We kept it 1-0 as we were losing at the time. We made the changes. We got the penalty, which was an incredible moment. We thought we nicked a replay, and we were all in tears crying about that we just got a draw at Aston Villa. And then, love behold, we nick the ball back. We get a corner. We think, get it in the box. We play it short to Dean Campbell. And when he's controlled the ball, you're thinking, surely not. No, and he's gone bang, and it's hit the back of the net. I've never seen anything like it. It was, I think, up until that point, that was the greatest night in the club's history. I certainly think if we get promoted, the promotion topples that. But what an incredible night! I'll never ever forget it. I'll never forget the scenes inside the ground, the celebrations, and kind of realising what we achieved that night. Just what an incredible night in the club's history.
I think some people forget, don't they, how big a club Aston Villa are? Because if you beat, let's say, a Brentford in that stage, or even a Bournemouth, it's not quite as exciting, is it? Because you think to yourself, well, we were playing them in the league not that long ago, so it's not really that big. Aston Villa won a European Cup in the 80s, and they're still a big club. They're still right up there in the Premier League, and that feeling it must have been at that final whistle as well, it must have been incredible. Probably a little bit disappointing to draw Stoke in the next round, I guess, but that's just luck, isn't it, sometimes?
Well, that was it. We knew who we'd drawn prior to the game anyway, because I know the draw was 34, so we knew we got Stoke, but you're completely right. I remember obviously when the draw was made, and we were just over the moon with what we'd got. And I think when we turned up on the day, you saw the size of the ground, you knew, oh my God, we're playing here today. And when we walked in and we saw that there was 36 to 38,000 tickets sold, you thought, my God, to win in front of that crowd was just something I never ever would have ever imagined. But it will live long in the memory. It will certainly go down as one of the greatest nights in the club history. And what a moment, and what a moment for this team as well, because this team had been put together by from scratch in the summer, and to have be second in the league as we are, and to have beaten a Premier League side away from home in the manner we did. It's just credit to the players and the management staff for making that happen. An incredible night, and I'll never ever forget it.
On the topic of the cup run, it did seem to dent your momentum a bit in the league. After you went out at Stoke, you failed to win any of your next 5. And that actually allowed us to rein you back in a little bit, and obviously then get ahead of you briefly. Was there a feeling of maybe, it was slightly to the detriment of your league form, or were you too lost up and caught up in the excitement of it at the time?
I think it's a bit of both, really. I think in the moment you're celebrating, aren't you? And actually, at that time, we were still winning our league games, so everything was perfect for us. Look, we'll all tell you at Stevenage, and I'm sure it's the same for everyone else. You know, our bread and butter's League Two. You know, that's what we want to be doing. That's what we want to achieve. You know, again, I say it, promotion over that night, Aston Villa all day long. It's what we want to achieve as a club, but the FA Cup, it brings the funds for smaller clubs like us. It gives our supporters and our club moments like we had at Aston Villa. And I agree with you. I think it did kind of alter things a little bit. We picked up a few injuries through the cup games to vital players, which has obviously kind of put us back in the month of February, where we knew that was going to be a tough month considering the injuries. So, yeah, I think it did have an effect. I think it maybe ran out the legs a little bit. And looking back, could we have done without it? Possibly. But at the same time, millions of pounds for the club, so it's well in the coffers, and we're over the moon that we had it. But obviously, it probably did have a little bit of an impact on us. If we didn't have the cup run, would we be first place right now? Possibly, but I'm still over the moon that we're able to experience it nevertheless.
Well, interesting you mentioned injuries there. It brings me nicely to the next question. So at Carlisle this season, we've had a particularly horrendous injury list for most of the campaign, near enough 10 players out for long periods. And we've actually had what I call the curse of the right wing back. 7 different players have played at right wing back for us this season, compared to only 1 at left wing back, which is ridiculous when you think about it. For you guys, it's been the curse of the goalkeeper, hasn't it?
Oh my God, has it? God, I've never seen anything like it the last 2 months. Yeah, I mean, Tay, our original keeper, Tay Ashby-Hammond, who's been absolutely brilliant this season. I mean, actually, since Tay's been gone, we've realised how easy he made it look in goal. It's just ridiculous. But Tay tore a little bit of his cartilage in training just after the Stoke game in the FA Cup, so just before we played Sutton, and ruled him out. We brought Jokal Anderson in from Exeter, who's a League One keeper who we were over the moon with having. Jokal played 2 games, and then I think he broke his arm against Newport. So then we've had to get in another keeper in Toby Savin, who, well, he weren't saving anything. I think that was the running joke at the football club. Played a couple of games. Yeah, couldn't. We called him paper hands by the 3rd game. It was ridiculous what we were having to settle up with, and then Accrington called him back, and then we've got a young lad called John McCracken who I've been really impressed with. He's played 2 games. It's been his first 2 professional games as well as a goalkeeper, and he's been brilliant. He's conceded 1 goal. He got a clean sheet the other night. His distribution's excellent, and we're over the moon. So yeah, it has been the curse of the goalkeeper, and we've had injuries to other players like Terence Van Kooten and Luther Wilding, which hasn't helped. And you know, we've had to. I think our issue is we've probably changed the side a bit too much around those injuries. That's why we've been losing the games. But fortunately, Steve's got back to playing the starting 11, and we seem like we've come out the blip.
It's interesting. Carlisle fans listening to this might want to know there is a slight link to us in terms of your injury issue with goalkeepers, because the goalkeeper at Accrington who got sent off, Lucas Jensen, who as a result Toby Savin had to go back to Accrington, we had him on loan a couple of years ago.
I see.
In fact, no, was it last season? Yeah, it was last season, sorry. We had him on loan. He played 1 game, and then we brought in another keeper, Mark Howard, to play on a permanent deal. He stayed, and Lucas Jensen was on loan for the whole season, but never ever got mentioned. And there was a running joke on our podcast, where else Lucas Jensen, because no one knew where he was, and he suddenly reappeared playing for Burnley under 23s at one point. So he's an interesting one, Lucas Jensen, but obviously there's this slight link to us. Yeah, in terms of your January transfer business, were you quite happy with it? I mean, looking through, there's a couple of interesting additions. Obviously, you lost the lad from Norwich, didn't you? Went back. Did he go to Plymouth? I seem to remember. I imagine that. What's his Saxon something, isn't it? I think.
Yeah, Saxon Early did hit. Actually, you know what? That was a big miss. That was. He had been brilliant for us, and at the start of the season, Max Clark, who's actually playing really well now at left back, when we first signed him from Rochdale, we thought he was going to be the starting left back, and Saxon came in, played the second half of the last 20 minutes on the opening day in the season, and the rest was history. He was brilliant, and he went to Plymouth. I think actually, there's rumours that Norwich sold him for $500,000.
Wow.
To Plymouth. So obviously Saxon's gone to Plymouth. He's doing really well there now. He's scored a couple of goals and playing regularly. So yeah, Saxon's a big.
That's the risk, isn't it? That's the risk of having a player on loan. You can always lose them, can't you?
You can, unfortunately. And I think Steve alluded to it. It was such a big miss. But fortunately, Max Clark stepped up to the plate and is playing equally as well as Saxon did.
Looking at your other your January rivals are having departures. Foster Kasky, and Darryl Horgan and Josh March. They're three that really stand out as good, strong additions. And at first, maybe I had a feeling when I looked and saw your results dropped off, I thought, this reminded me of us a couple of seasons ago when we thought we'd made some good additions, but it disrupted the flow of the squad a bit, and as a result, we sort of dropped off. It looks like they're settling now. Have they been pretty good additions?
Yeah, I mean, do you know what? When we signed them in January, we were over the moon because they're League One players. I mean, Forster Kasky's a Charlton player. I know he's been injured a lot the last year, but he's a League One player. Darryl Horgan's a League One player. Josh March won the league with Forest Green last season and contributed to a few goals. I remember him scoring against us on a New Year Day. They're League One players, including Tomkinson as well. So we were over the moon with them. I'll be completely honest, actually. It's taken them a while to settle in. They didn't really make an initial impact of the squad. We were saying, actually, Darryl Horgan and Forster Kasky and Josh March, they first come in and actually they didn't really make an impact at all. So we were, for about a few weeks, we were a little bit disappointed. But recently, after a couple of months of settling in, they're starting now to play like the players that we kind of thought that we first had. Josh March, a perfect example. I think he said in an interview last week that he didn't feel as fit as he could have been when he first joined the club, and had a couple of games, didn't score any goals. Steve played him last Saturday and he scored 2 goals and he should have had a hat-trick. He was brilliant. He played last night and was, again, terrific. He looks like a player that is going to hopefully help us get over the line when we've got, obviously, Elliot List out injured. He's been out injured all season. So, yeah, they're starting to play like the players that we first thought that we'd signed. Forster Kasky's played a couple of games now. He's looked really good. He was great at AFC Wimbledon and he was brilliant when he come on last night. I think he could actually start against your lot on Saturday. So, yeah, they're starting to play like the players that we wanted them to be. And, yeah, we're over the moon with it now. They're making an impact. And thankfully, because of that, we're getting results.
Yeah, it helps, doesn't it, sometimes? It does take players a while to settle. We had it with Zanzala a couple of years ago. It took him a good month or two to actually settle in, and when he did, actually started scoring goals. And unfortunately, it was too late because the rest of the team had dropped off so massively by then it didn't make any difference. Who are the danger men to watch out for then this weekend? Obviously, you've mentioned a few players already, but anyone in particular that we need to keep an eye out for? Yeah,
there's a couple that stand out. Up top, you need to keep an eye on Luke Norris, Jamie Reid. Jamie Reid come on and scored a brilliant goal last night. They're 2 players that you need to keep an eye on. Luke Norris is our top goal scorer. He's got over 10 goals this season in all comps. I think he's got about 14 or 15 in all comps. He's got 9 to 10 in the league. So you need to keep an eye on them. Their performances have been brilliant recently. Jordan Roberts, second top goal scorer. What a player. I mean, again, he's one of those players where we look and we think, how on earth have we got him? He's a League One player. He should not be playing League Two football. It's simple as he's a terrific player. He plays as a free role in the midfield. He contributes to goals. He gets assists. He keeps the ball. He's kind of crossing abilities. He's terrific. Again, he's not a player that should be playing in League Two. Terrific player. Other players like Alex Gilby, again, League One level players in the midfield, quality players. But there is something that you need to keep an eye out for, and that's the set pieces. I say it to every side of podcasts that I come on every week. Your Carl Piergiani's and Dan Sweeney's from corners. Huge threat. We score a lot from corners and a lot from free kicks. So keep an eye out for those boys whenever we get a corner or a free kick. Carl Piergiani's got I did read the other day, he's only lost 2 headers from a corner this season. So, yeah, keep an eye out from those. I'd say they're our kind of standout players.
That's going to be fascinating to see because we're very good on set pieces attacking as well. And we've got Moxon who puts a brilliant ball into the box. And we've got Paul Huntington who, since he's come in, obviously he's an experienced defender. He wins almost everything in the air. So the contest between them two, actually, is quite fascinating to see who comes out on top in that. Before we wrap it up and we do predictions, then we're going to record a bit for your pod. This weekend's game then. So you said on your pod you feel if you win... I think you tempered it down because you got excited first thing and you said, if we win, that's pretty much us, we're getting there. But then if you're like, actually, if we win, that's puts us well on the way, basically. Do you still think that? Do you think it's a case of if either side wins, they put themselves in that pole position to get that second place?
I really do. I think whoever wins really will go on to get promoted. I know that there's still 10 games to play after, and 10 games in the grand scheme of things in League Two, still a long way to go. But I just think, if we win, we're up to 69 points. If you win, you're up to 67. You're nearly there. You've pretty much guaranteed a playoff spot with a win. You probably need one more win. So I do. Look, it's a massive game. And obviously being away from home, big ground, big crowd. Look, I'd bite your arm off for a point. I think we said after we beat Crewe and won the 2 back-to-back home games like we've done, it kind of takes the pressure off. It allows us to draw at your place or draw against Northampton, who we've got in a couple of games after yourselves. So, yeah, look, I'd bite your arm off for a point. Do I believe we can win? Yes. Do I believe it's going to be a very tough game against a good side? Yes, I do. It's going to be a cracking game. It's going to be great to witness. But I fancy us. But look, I'd bite your arm off for a draw and run back to Hertfordshire with 67 points in the bag. That would do me, yeah.
So I'm asking you a prediction now. I think I'm going to guess, is it going to be a draw for this one, possibly?
Well, the funny thing is, Lee, anyone that knows me just knows I never bet against Stevenage. So, do you know what? I said in our podcast earlier, I've tried to separate my biased view to my unbiased view, and it's very difficult because I think going into it, I actually think a draw you'd probably be bang on with when you look at a lot of the top teams. Whenever they play each other, a lot of the time the draws, a lot of the time that the top sides cancel each other out. But I said on the pod earlier, and I'm not going to shy away from it. I've gone for a sneaky 1-0 win in the last 10 minutes, but I think it's going to be really tough. And do you know what? That 1-0 win could go either way. But I'm going to back us on this one. I'm going to say 1-0 win, last 10 minutes. I'll go for Luke Norris to nick the winner.
Well, Matt, thanks very much again for coming on. I wish you all the best for the rest of the season after this weekend. And genuinely, I think it'd be very much justice if you guys go up because you've been right up there all season. So, yeah, all the best.
Oh, Lee, thank you very much. Thanks for having me on. And again, hopefully we see each other in League One next year.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, big thanks once again to Matt for giving up his time to speak to us. I also did a bit for Matt's pod. You can go and find that. We've retweeted it from our Twitter account as well. Really good to chat to him. And yeah, Dan, it's like there's so many parallels between the two teams, isn't there, in terms of this season? And probably Leyton Orient as well, you can add into that as well. All three teams currently in the top 3 have come from very similar situations, haven't they?
Yeah. All big improvers. I mean, I think we both said we could see Orient improving, but
yeah,
I don't think the Stevenage improvement was as expected.
Yeah, I'll give you that. I did have them as a dark horse, I'm pretty sure. So I'm very much looking forward to taking credit for that come May or June or whenever we do our season roundup episode. But you're right. I mean, especially in terms of the getting rid of a manager late on last season, bringing back someone in, an experienced head who's turned things around, got them away from trouble, and then rebuilt the squad in the summer. And I don't think anybody at the start of the season, if you told them that Carlisle and Stevenage would be sitting in second and third place come this point, would have believed you, would they?
No, not at all. Not at all. I mean, it's possibly the biggest game in England this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, definitely the biggest game in League Two. 100% there. It's one of those ones you look and you think, if it had been next weekend, with it being international weekend and obviously Sky not having any championship games to show, or Premier League, they may well have gone, that's a good one to show that. And they might have picked us out of the game to show, mightn't they? As it is, they're not interested in Gillingham v
I
Carlisle.
just don't think they would, no.
I don't know, I have a feeling they would have looked and thought, actually, you know what, that potentially has the...
If it had been Salford, they might have.
Yeah, well, yeah, you're probably right there, to be fair. Yeah. But yes, it has that feel. It's such an exciting game, isn't it? And we'll talk about that again in a second. But let's get into some of the facts and figures. Tom Reeves from Warwickshire, he's the referee for this weekend's game. His second season in the EFL. This season, he's taken charge of 29 games and handed out 95 yellows and 4 red cards. So not too bad in terms of number of cards handed out. Last season, he handed out 121 yellow cards and 7 red cards in 34 games. The last United game he took charge of was the 3-1 win at Hartlepool earlier this season. Callum Guy was the only United player booked that day. Head-to-head wise, it's a 26th meeting between the two sides. United have won 12, 4 have been draws, and Stevenage have won 9. Looking at their squad, Dan, I said this to Matt in our chat. I said, you look at the squad, it's a good squad. but you wouldn't have said it was a top 3 squad when you look at it. What it looks like is a balanced squad in terms of characters and players that can fill in a few positions, and a little bit of experience sprinkled in there that makes a difference. And
a manager who knows what he's doing. I know there's a long running thing between our fans and him, but the bloke gets results.
100%. And actually, when you look at it, it doesn't look like a squad where, because in the past, when you look at when he was at Crawley and when he was at Rotherham and places like that, he's obviously been very well backed in terms of budget. And I'm not saying he hasn't had an okay budget here, but that doesn't strike you and go like a stockpot and go, wow, they've just thrown money at this. What he's done is he's put together a decent squad, hasn't he? And he knows how to drive them. And yeah, he's a detestable character when he's on the touchline at times and the way he behaves. And he's going to get some abuse this weekend. Good natured, I'd hope. But if he was your manager, you'd love him, wouldn't you? Just because of the way he is and the way he gets behind his team.
Yeah,
he's that kind of character.
He has his persona and it works for him.
Exactly, and to be fair to him, right, what I'd say is actually, he always gives us a lot of credit as a club. He always says, you go up there, it's a horrible atmosphere, but they get behind their team, they really back their side, and, great pitch, great. And obviously he's given Simo a lot of credit this season as well, and, said we've got a good squad, and I think there's a bit of a mutual respect there, isn't there? But I think Simo knows there's going to be fun and games from on the touchline this weekend, so he won't be rising to that.
Well, yeah, he actually said in his article, didn't he, on the club site.
Yeah, let's not get involved in any of that. Looking through the squad, Dan, any names particularly stand out for you? I mean, Jake Forster-Caskey, obviously, he's a player with a very good pedigree in terms of his dad and his stepdad. In Nicky Forster and Darren Caskey, was it? I think he played for Reading. I think it was.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a bad set of dads, is it? Really, to get a bit of influence from, I guess. He's a decent addition.
Pennyjan is the one that stands out. He's played well this season.
Yeah.
You look at names, you see like Bostwick, he knows what he's doing. Luke Norris knows what he's doing. There's 2 or 3.
Dan Sweeney won promotion last season with Forest Green,
Yeah.
Perfect player to get in, isn't it, in terms of that? And same with Josh Marsh as well. He's been a really good addition in January. I mean, they've played the whole season as well without Elliot List. He was a really good striker for them, and yet he's been injured from it. I think he's played like 20 minutes or something like that, and then he got injured in the first game. So to do without him as well, seriously impressive the way they've gone about things this season. And it's not the world's biggest squad, even when you look at it, actually, it's quite a tight squad. So to actually do it on that, really impressive the season they've had. One area they have had a bit of an issue is goalkeeper, isn't it? So they brought in Tate Ashby-Hammond on loan from Fulham, who I think is the only player who gets anywhere close to Holy in terms of height. I think he's either 6'7" or 6'8" as a goalkeeper. He got himself injured towards the end of January. So they brought in Jockle Anderson, who you might remember is the, have gloves will travel goalkeeper of last season, who kept going out on emergency loans to Exeter and Morecambe and a few other clubs in Reading. He actually signed a half-season loan from Reading, played a couple of games and promptly broke his arm, which put them in a situation where they had to bring in Adam Prisbeck. Prisbeck? It's a Polish-looking name, but he's Welsh, I should say. And he's only played a handful of games, so they were allowed as an emergency loan to bring in another keeper. They brought in Toby Savin on loan from Accrington. And then, as it would happen, Lucas Jensen, more on him shortly, he managed to get himself sent off for Accrington. So Toby Savin had to go back to Accrington. And the way emergency loans work now, Dan, it's changed, hasn't it? So if you have an injury crisis outside a transfer window, you can sign a goalkeeper on an emergency loan, but it's only allowed to be a 7-day deal, isn't it? Yeah. Like every week you have to renew that 7-day deal, basically, depending on if your keeper's back fit again. So that you can't have like someone on a month loan and then your keeper's back after a week and you've got 2 very good keepers. So as a result, they had to go back out again, and they brought in John McCracken on loan from Norwich City, and it looks like he might have solved the issue for now. He's had a couple of good games for them, I think, so they seem pretty happy. So they've had 5 different goalkeepers playing for them this season. Like I said, very reminiscent of us in 2000, where I think we had a similar number, didn't we? We had the one who played in the FA Cup game that we don't talk about. We had Luke Weaver, Peter Keane, Andy Dibble, God, do you remember that? That's going back a bit, isn't it? Peter van der Kwak, and I'm sure there's one over that I've probably missed in there. Michael Ingham. So at least 6 goalkeepers actually played for us, but another 2 were on the books at one point. Remember, was it the Norwegian or former Norway international as well, who tore his hamstring running for a taxi at the airport to come over to play for us as well? Remember him?
Yeah.
That's how mad that season
John
was.
Coleman did an interview with him a while back.
Did he? Wow. Incredible that, isn't it? It's ridiculous, but there you go. So yeah, they've had a bit of a problem with goalkeepers, but in a similar way that we've had a big issue with right wing backs this season, and you find a way, don't you, when you're doing well, I guess. Only other bits I'd pick out, obviously you mentioned Pierre Gianni there. He's had an incredible season. I'm really excited to see how he goes up against Joe Garner, aren't you? That's going to be a real proper contest, that.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, I mean, neither of them are the biggest, actually. Pierre Gianni is a good 6'1", 6'2", maybe, and obviously Garner's only just about 6 foot, maybe just below. So watching them battle for aerial balls is going to be really fascinating, and I'm pretty sure Joe's going to start this game. I'd be amazed if he didn't.
And then on the hour, we can bring Ryan Edmondson on to continue the baton.
Yeah, and maybe bring him on with Christian Dennis and get Christian Dennis playing off him and taking the chances possibly. So that's going to be really interesting. One thing I have noted with Stevenage looking through the season is that they have a tendency to Evans, because he has this really small squad, makes 5 subs more often probably than any other manager. He's really keen to make sure he uses those subs as much as he can, which is we've seen with Simmer this season. He's more happy to stick with the momentum, isn't he? Really, that's his attitude to it. So different managers take different sort of routes with that. So interesting to see whether he does that at the weekend or whether Simmer maybe thinks, right, I need to do that as well to match up in terms of keeping our players fresh. But Simmer all seems quite comfortable to stick to 3, doesn't he?
Yeah.
And there's advantages to that, I guess, but there you go.
Yeah.
Right, that's enough about Stevenage. We'll briefly touch Bradford. We're not going to go into too much depth on Bradford, are we? Because
we have covered it already.
The only thing really to look at, I mean, the referee is exactly the same as Will Finney, who was obviously the referee who was in place for last time, from Bedfordshire. That's a trek to make for midweek, isn't it? Just a note in terms of him, fairly straightforward with cards, 25 games, 83 yellows this season and 1 red. Last season, 83 and 4 reds. So fairly similar in terms of his stats over the 2 campaigns. Last United game we took charge of was the 2-1 defeat Exeter last season. John Mellish was sent off in that game. Quite rightly, if anyone remembers, that was not a good tackle from Big John that day. 58 meaning between the 2 sides. 21 wins for us, 22 wins for the Bantams and 14 draws. So very well balanced in terms of head-to-head. Quick look through their squad, Dan. They obviously, when we were originally going to play them, it was 21st of January, so they still had time to bring a couple more in, didn't they? Which they did do. They brought Adam Clayton in just before that game. But they've also added Sam Stubbs from Exeter City. If the name sounds familiar, it's because he is the son of Alan, isn't he, I think? Former Everton and Hibs defender, I think he was. Was he Hibs? I imagine that. I'm sure he was somewhere else as well, but I can't for the life of me remember where it was. But yeah, so they brought him in. And a couple more have gone out. Jan Sanogo's gone out on loan to Walsall, and Levi Sutton's left to Harrogate for a permanent deal. Quick look at their squad, Dan. So when you look at it, it's far better than the position they're in. Really, actually, when I look back at it now, they should be in challenge for a top 3 spot for most of the season. Surely, shouldn't they? They should have been in there.
They should be.
In terms of the quality in attack, especially when you look at it, Andy Cook scores goals for fun. We've seen that. Derbyshire, maybe he's a bit older now, but he's still a good player. Harry
Oliver
Chapman
knows what he's doing in this league.
Exactly. Jamie Walker looked a really good player in that game at the end of last season as well. And even into midfield, Richie Smallwood played 40-odd championship games last season. Adam Clayton's got bags of experience.
Gilead's got plenty of it.
Exactly. Ozadabi as well is a really good player on his day. I think defence is maybe the only area you look and think maybe they've been a little bit short. And in goalkeeper, Harry Lewis was probably the best goalkeeper I've seen this season, actually, against us. He had a brilliant game at Brunton Park. So, yeah, it's kind of like you look and you think... But then you look at their record, and the problem is they rely heavily on Andy Cook, don't they?
Yeah, definitely.
Massively rely on his goals in terms of keeping them right up there. And when he stops scoring, they stop getting results, don't they? And it's no surprise that they've had this good run recently And Cook's scored in pretty much every one of those games, hasn't he? So he's going to be the one to watch out for against us at the week in midweek. Beyond that, yeah, it's you think surely that I feel like they're pretty much guaranteed a playoff spot now, Bradford, just because of the momentum they've got and the way they're going. Could they sneak into the top 3? Possibly. I think it depends on whether Stevenage drop off a bit. Because actually, one thing I didn't mention when we were talking about Stevenage is Stevenage next 3 games, us, Northampton, and Salford. That's a rotten run for them, really, in terms of the quality of opposition they're playing.
That's a nice word to use, rotten.
It is a bit of a rotten one, isn't it? In terms of, you think of all the things to have at this period, you don't really want that. So they're probably looking at, I think, if we come out of that pretty unscathed, Stevenage, you'd imagine they'll be right up there and finishing the top 3. So that goes to show. Right, let's talk about United then, Dan. Look at that injury list I've put up on the thing. It's looking nice, isn't it? Only 4 players on there? I mean, 2 of them are long term who've you've almost discounted for the season, haven't you, really? That not involved now, basically. Dickinson and Joe Silva. But Finn back, potentially back in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Taylor Charters, maybe in a week longer, 3 weeks or so. Jack Ellis, probably 2 or 3 weeks as well for him. So he's end of the month. It's just coming about at the right time, isn't it? In terms of, this weekend we could have, when you look at it, potentially you could be leaving out, let's say you went for exactly the same 18, you're leaving out Ben Barkley, Jamie Devitt, Jaden Harris, Josh Dixon. All 4 of those fit enough to be involved and going to be left out, possibly, aren't they?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which, we've not had that. We've maybe had 1 or 2 out for this season. This is probably the first time we've had more than 2 players left out on matchday squad, isn't it? And that's a massive, massive bonus coming into this run-in, isn't it?
Definitely.
Absolutely. Start 11, stick again?
Yeah, I think so. I think we played quite well with McCollum on the pitch, and when he came off, maybe not quite as...
Well, it's funny you say that, because as someone who was there, you're right, actually, when he came off, we struggled a bit. But actually, when he was on the pitch, probably had one of his poorer games since he's come in. He gave the ball away quite a bit, actually. His passing was a little bit off. But you're right, once he went off, actually, we did struggle a bit in that game.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's... So, you wouldn't change it up at all? Would you
No, I'd probably keep it the same.
Would you not be tempted to bring Gibson in against his former club and see how he does? I kind of feel like this one's going to be a midfield battle, and I think I agree with you. I think I'd stick with McCalmont in there, possibly, for this one.
I suppose it depends what happens Saturday first as well, doesn't it? I'd keep it the same for Saturday and see what happens Saturday for Tuesday. Yeah,
I think part of me would be tempted to bring Gibson in for the Bradford game. These are both his former clubs.
You maybe see a little change in the forward line, possibly.
Yeah, I kind of feel like Gibson will... I think of his 2 former clubs were playing, he's going to be more up for the Bradford one, isn't he? He'll be wanting to prove a point. I'd 100% start Patrick against Bradford. Absolutely. Whether you'd maybe
I'm going to have to stop here.
Go on.
Is this my parcel? Yeah, 1 second. I'll just get this. Well, as you just heard, I have just had a delivery and live update. It is something for the Warwick Road end.
Ooh.
And it's quite a big box.
Interesting.
That's all I'm going to say.
So is that going to be in for Saturday, or are we waiting until the Tranmere game?
No, it won't be in for Saturday. It'll be Tranmere.
Oh, well, there you go. Interesting to see what that'll be. That's a nice little look ahead for everyone there. I kind of feel like, I think Omari Patrick, I'd start in both games. I think that kind of makes sense. It's Garner, I'd maybe look and think, okay, if we can get the Stevenage game's going to be a real battle. I'm quite comfortable with the idea of him playing that, and maybe for the midweek one, that's when we bring in Christian Dennis maybe, or even Edmondson, and just say to them, like, you just wait for your chance and you take that chance, basically, when it comes to you in those games, and let Patrick do the running, basically, for that one. So it'll be interesting to see what he does in terms of that. One point I want to make here before we go on to the match predictions is something we didn't mention in the review section. We really are sharing the goals around now, aren't we? This is a really impressive start, this. So, in our last 12 goals, we've had 11 different goal scorers. And the only player to score 2 goals in that time, Dan?
Alfie McCalmont.
Which is a surprise, isn't it? Because you'd think, Amari Patrick or, someone like that, a striker. But nope, it's Alfie McCormick. He's the only one who's managed to score twice in that time. And both full-backs have scored. A couple of the centre-backs have scored. You've had a midfield goal in there. I think that takes you all the way back to Dennis's penalty goal against Barrow, basically. So, seriously impressive stats.
Which, again, is a sign of a team that's doing things.
Exactly, a team that's working well and knows what it's doing. So, fantastic to see. Right, prediction time then, Dan. In terms of the prediction league, you've gained a point back, so we're level at the top, aren't you? Because you got the score line right last weekend. Didn't get the goal scorers because I don't think anyone anticipated Jack Armour smashing one into the top corner from 20 yards. I think we've picked Armour a couple of times recently, haven't we? And it's never come off. And typical when we finally don't, he goes and scores. So points-wise, both me and you in 21, Mike's on 14, and I'm not having Mike trying to include Greg Pullman in this. Greg's just an occasional guess. He's only been involved twice. You're not getting away with bottom of this league, Mike. Not a chance. So there you go. Yeah. First up, Dan, let's have your prediction for the Stevenage game.
I'm going to go for a 3-1 win.
Ooh.
Joe Garner's going to score. Callum Guy's going to celebrate his new deal and score. And then I think if he comes off the bench, Christian Dennis is going to get a goal. He got one in that reserve friendly to keep him ticking over.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, okay. I'm going to go for... I think when I spoke to the Stevenage pod, I said 2-1, and I'm going to go 2-1, and it's going to be a very tight game, I think. And I think the goals will be Paul Huntington header from a corner and Joe Garner to get the other. Yeah, the two old stages, they're going to get the goals in this one. So there you go, 2-1 win. Here's Mike's prediction for the game.
I'm going for a 1-0 win with Joe Garner getting a goal.
Oh, you think this will be a very tight game indeed. Only one goal in it. Right, Bradford game, Dan, what are you going for?
I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw here. Don't get us wrong, I want us to win, but a draw certainly wouldn't be the worst result in the world.
No.
Because it stops them gaining as well. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw, and I'm going to go for Amari Patrick against his old team.
That's really annoying because that's what I was thinking of going for. I'm going to go 1-1 draw then. I reckon Jordan Gibson is going to get a goal and he's going to absolutely love it. He's going to milk it for all he can. Right, here's Mike's prediction for the Bradford game.
I'm going to go for a 2-1 win with goals from Huntington and Patrick.
Well, there you go. So he's going for a double header of wins. He thinks we're going to get to six wins in a row. I mean, we did that the season we went up last time, didn't we? We had that run where we won 6 or 7 in a row. So sometimes you need that. But there you go. And then that would take us nicely into the next game. I mean, it's weird that game against Gillingham. If you look back at that back in like October, November, you'd think, well, there's a gimme 3 points come next March. Now you look and think, I'd probably take a point at Gillingham because they're a very tough side to face. But then again, a team that's going up really should be going for a win there, shouldn't they?
Win at home, draw away, and you'll never be far away.
Exactly that. Right, let's wrap things up, Dan. A fairly short X-File section this week. A couple of interesting names in there, though, isn't there?
Yeah, quite short. Early hours Saturday morning, Zach Clough scored for Adelaide in their 4-2 win at Newcastle Jets. Adelaide doing quite well in the A-League this year. Jack Marriott, there's a name we haven't heard for a while, scored for Fleetwood in their 1-1 draw with Port Vale.
Is that his first goal for Fleetwood? I reckon it is, isn't it? I don't think I remember seeing him.
I can't recall him scoring recently. So, and as we've already mentioned his name, Andy Cook scored again. His 20th league goal of the season for Bradford in that 1-1 draw at Newport.
Just a note on that draw at Newport, because we didn't talk about their last game, Bradford, in the previous section. We've got to give a mention to the Bradford goalkeeper, Harry Lewis, and his cock-up that he got away with in this game, didn't he? So as anyone who doesn't already know, Newport share their pitch with 2 rugby teams, don't they? Rugby union sides. So when the football games are on, they have to black out or basically paint green over the white, the yard marking, so like the 10-yard point and the 20-yard point and stuff like that. Problem is, Harry Lewis went a bit walkabout, walked to the edge of his box and forgot he was at the edge of his box, saw the line in front of him from the rugby and promptly caught the ball about 25 yards out from goal, didn't he?
Yeah.
And he's very lucky in the sense that there was a covering defender, so I think the referee was like, it's not a goal scoring opportunity, so it's just a handball basically, and I think he gave him just a booking Because if a striker had been through on goal, he would have been off there, wouldn't he? So, to be fair, when you look at it, it's not. If you're up close, that line probably is quite clear, isn't it? You don't realise that it isn't the line that is, the rugby lines rather than the pitch lines. So I can kind of get why he's done it. From a distance, it's a bit more obvious, but close up, it probably. I think it's ridiculous sometimes with clubs sharing with rugby teams, but that's another discussion altogether, isn't it? But there you go. Right, midweek, Dan.
Midweek, just a couple of incidents. Jenny Yates scored a penalty. Blackpool had a massive 6-1 thumping of QPR.
Yeah.
Real result that they haven't been doing well, Blackpool, so that was a massive boost for them.
And you see, there was a lot of flares let off, wasn't there, as well, because they were celebrating the life of that Blackpool fan who sadly died at the recent game against Burnley. It was a real sort of celebration of his life, so that was nice to see as well.
And Lucas Jensen, red card.
We missed this last week, didn't we?
Picked up his second red card in the space of a week in Accrington Stanley's 3-1 home defeat to Portsmouth.
You'd forgotten about him so much that you missed his red card last week.
Yeah, I was trying to erase him from my life.
Exactly. Lucas Jensen, where are they?
He got sent off at Ipswich.
Yeah. Straight
red in injury time. Missed the trip to Charlton. Came in for the Portsmouth home game and then got sent off. So, is it not 4 games for 2 red cards now?
No, because it's not. If it's not violent conduct, it's only a 1-game ban. So it's basically a professional foul, isn't it? I think so. It's only he'll get a 2-game ban for this one basically because he's already had a red card. But identical red cards by all accounts. He basically just came out of his box and took a player out. So yeah, sod's law for him.
Yeah, and just a little bit of other news. James Brown called up to the Malta squad for the Euro 2024 qualifiers against North Macedonia and Italy. And I think we touched on this. Magnus Norman made the final 16 for the England C squad. Yeah. And we were looking at it, seems to be you can only have 1 player from each team.
Yeah, it looks like they changed it, doesn't it? Yeah.
Gone are the days of Barnett providing 18 players and all that,
Yeah.
And former left-back Joe Dudgeon, ex-Man United loanee, is going to be a scout at Celtic, high up in their scouting department.
Interesting.
He's been scouting a lot since he retired early, and he's worked his way up the ladder.
There you go. Right, that's it for this week's episode then, Dan. A bumper episode, it's fair to say. I think we've got a good 85 minutes in or so now, I think, and we obviously... Well, that's in terms of our recording. Once you add in the behind enemy lines, it's pushed to, well over 100 minutes, so thank you to anyone who's got this far. Really do appreciate it, because it'll be a bit of a slog, but I hope you enjoy it on your way up to the game this weekend. We're so excited for this game, aren't we? I mean, I can't... I feel like I'm a little bit nervous ahead of it, but not like a nervous worry we're going to lose. It's just I think it's a nervous excitement, isn't it, for this match? Yeah. It's one of those games...
Because we're going to win.
You're always positive about it, that's the thing.
Yeah.
It's one of those games, isn't it, that you've got to enjoy, you've got to look forward to, because... When you look at some of the miserable seasons we've had in recent years, and 17 years since our last promotion, these are the games you've got to thrive off, aren't they? And hopefully with a bumper crowd in as well. That's the big thing as well. If we can get a nice big crowd, it'd be fantastic. So there you go. Dan, we're going to be back next week, aren't we, with a preview for the Gillingham game. But beyond that, thanks very much for joining me, Dan.
No bother.
Thanks everyone for listening, and most importantly of all, up the Blues.
Up the Blues.